I'll have to give in to this. So I made up my mind to move to Kiramoana.
I'll never ever let my people forget it. My mokapunas know about it, because I don't want them going into the universities and reading about it before I tell them. Right? Because I want them to know from me what really happened, the truth that happened here. Elizabeth R was coming to New Zealand in 1950. The planners wanted her to have a Tamaki Drive excursion, but not with her subjects, the Maori people living here. And that was one of the reasons. Another reason is that the non-Maori people in the city had a competition what to do with this land. It was called the Hammond Plan. And they planned to have tennis courts and sporting facilities, swimming pools. And so they had a competition. Who could make the best plan to plan this place while we were still living there? 700 acres. None of it was left, just the cemetery plot down below. The government stopped short of taking the cemetery. Not even the marae, all that was gone, the sacred ground. And to live in those streets under the wing of the state was really disheartening for them, as they constantly looked down with longing on the marae below. I should go up there and ask all these people in Paratai Drive for a cheque for living on my estate. Because it belongs to Te Kaua and his kin forever and forever and forever.
When my parents suffered and they came home and we saw the tears in their eyes and the heartbreak of going through the court and being told again, no, the Crown has nothing to answer to. You know, and we say, let's do something different, let's fight for it. And they used to say, Tauterangi Māori, you know, let peace reign. And we were tired and we were worn out listening to this Tauterangi Māori. It was only Tauterangi Māori one way. It was only peace reign one way. And so we have to look at another way of promoting our cause. You must remember, at that time there was a lot of social changes. There was the anti-Vietnam, there was anti-nuclear, there was abortion rights, and all of these things were around in this country and internationally. Joe and his wife Renee had participated in the Māori Land March. They marched the length of the land, stopping at 25 marae en route, and it was an exercise in widespread politicisation of Māori people. They would be welcomed at a little local country marae. Why are you marching? All this sweat and dust and toil, for what? And so the people who knew the history would sit down and talk about the history of the treaty, its betrayal, and that was a politicisation all the way down the centre of the island. Now for Joe and his wife, they were on an extreme high as a consequence of that land march. And when they came back, they were down in a low. What next?
I had a meeting with the elders and I said, well, the National Government has announced the subdivision of the land on Takaparawa, and they are going to subdivide and sell by tender to the highest bidder.
And what they recommended to the department was that it was appropriate to utilise this land, which was just sitting there.
This is the Tamaki electorate, and Muldoon was the member of Parliament from Tamaki, and to boot he was the Prime Minister.
Muldoon was accused of, looking after his friends, that there was something in it for him, more votes perhaps.
He had a strong view that the return to the Crown should be maximised from this land, and that meant high-cost housing or units of some sort.
I got a phone call from a fellow who sounded quite drunk, and I got abused, and he told me who he was, and he told me he was a local land agent, well known in the eastern suburbs, and he's still a prominent figure today, and he rang me up and he abused me a treat. I'd like to think it was the alcohol doing half the talking, and it was because I had sided with those other guys, the Maoris, and the whites should stick together. And he was disappointed that I'd have made these comments, because he had, as he said, Muldoon had promised him the commission, or the sales, the right to sell, and therefore the commission from the land.
Muldoon exposed the nature of some people who basically greedy, and exposed the fact that there was no concern for Māori issues at all. Muldoon did that, and there are many little Muldoons around still doing that.
I needed a Sir Robert. I needed that catalyst out there to generate an impact. He said no, no, and we said yes, yes. And he said no show, no go, and we said let's see.
But you always get people who think that should go with what the law has to offer, but sometimes you need people to just get up there and dig the dirt and be radical, because sometimes, you know, people have been taking cases to the courts for years and years and years, and they just did not get resolved. You need people to just get up there and do it.
So we occupy the land, and we say to the government, address the issue. This land is Māori land. It's not Crown land. It's our land.
There was no notice. It's like, come on, we're going now. Hooked up the trailer, put tents and whatever else we had on. I don't know what the children were thinking. No idea. It was like follow the leader. And it was quite exciting.
Being a young lad of about 11, I wasn't too sure what was going on. But what I can remember is it was summertime in 1976, and the beaches at Okahu and Mission Bay around about that time of the year just filled with people, and it was a really summery sort of time, barbecues and parties. It was that kind of time. After summer had finished and all my friends had gone back home, suddenly the realisation of oh, that's right, we're here for a purpose, there's a reason why we're here. And as time went on and winter set in, the take of why we were there really sort of hit home.
The occupation took us by surprise. We had no warning of it, and the instructions that came through to me following cabinet consideration of the matter was get them off. Just go and get them off. Simple.
We came back and we were quite excited. We were just half a dozen tents up, and I felt there and then, after time staying with the whānau, with the people, with all our supporters, that it was the right thing to do, to come and live on the point. But Joanie was a happy child. We had her 5-year-old birthday here on the point, which was just in a shed that we had here at that time. It was just beautiful.
You look at it today, it's nice green grass, isn't it? That was mud. It was just mud, and the people were living in the tents there, and lots of people came in with various forms of support, but the Action Committee people were the ones that were here right through it all.
Over a period of time it became a burden in terms of the children's education and the routine that we had. I mean, it was still the reality of surviving, paying the mortgage and whatever else.
Prime Minister spoke about Bastion Point at his lunchtime news conference, and he had no doubts about who was behind the protest movement. He named the Socialist Unity Party, headed by Bill Anderson.
Again, the shadowy figure of Anderson is behind it. They've no sympathy for the Maori as such. They're using them.
It really got up the late Sir Robert's nose.
Of course, Muldoon was someone we loved to be offside with, really, and the fact that he was the local MP and was really pushing us along was one of the reasons that made it even more important that we should oppose it. But I would stress that when it came to this occupation here at Bastion Point, the Ōrākei Action Committee really did maintain a strong commitment that this was a Māori issue, and this wasn't an issue for the Communist Party or the Socialist Action League to run it in any way at all.
Muldoon was not capable of seeing the moral question, and moral issues have power in their own right. You know, the truth will eventually out, and there's nothing more powerful than the truth once it is proclaimed.
I was